Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. My name is Dr. Cameron Garber here with Body Smart, and we want to talk to you today. Our little tip of Wednesday Wisdom is when to peak during your training so that you have an optimal race day. So it's a really important topic, and kind of a hard one to balance. A lot of the time, we get to race day and we bonk big time, and some of those reasons are we either peaked too early, or we're not quite to our peak yet, or we trained so hard that we never really peaked, and so race day just went rough, and we went into it feeling beat up and didn't have enough energy reserve and things like that. So there are a couple, I guess, three key phases of training that most athletes talk about. So we've got our base building phase, our peak phase, and then the taper. And so making sure that we can be right at our peak, even if we aren't doing quite peak training because we've tapered just a little bit, how to balance that out really is important so that we can still perform like we were at our peak, but taper off enough that we have enough energy in reserve for race day. So it's a really delicate balance there. So the base building phase is definitely where we're building up all of those miles and the resilience of our body to be able to handle the load we're going to put on it during the peak phase. The peak phase is where we're going to work on getting as fast as possible over the distance that we want to run. So our training intensity and training volume goes up a bit within reason so that we don't get injured, but we're going to want to push those limits a little bit of what we're currently capable of doing so that we can get as fast as possible and hold that speed for as long as possible to get ready for race day. And so that's a key thing. We really want to peak depending on the race distance and kind of what your goals are right before race day. So within a couple of weeks, so that when we're tapering, what we want to do is not make sure we don't taper too much or too quickly. So we want to taper kind of the last couple of weeks right before race day, but we want to maintain our running volume that we earned during our peak phase. We just want to back off the intensity a little bit, but we still want to keep in some faster, harder workouts so that we maintain our speed and things like that. One of the things that we use here at Body Smart to really help maintain that peak conditioning and that the turnover and the speed of running, we use our light speed lift treadmill here. Really helps a lot during that taper phase to maintain the conditioning level and the speed and the turnover that you earned during the peak phase. So even though you're tapering off the intensity, you can still keep up your volume of mileage and also keep those mechanics of speed so that you don't drop off too bad during the taper. Sometimes that's a complaint that people feel like their legs are heavy and they just lose that peak speed that they had during their peak phase. And so the taper, you really have to be careful with that you do enough fast running to keep your speed, but that you really give your body enough of a break in the intensity while still maintaining the volume of training so you don't get to race day and get injured because you backed so much off on the volume. And so really at the taper phase, the hay is in the barn from what you earn in the peak phase. We're not trying to continue to make improvement during that phase. We're backing off enough. And the reason why you want to back off and taper and not just stay peaked all the way through race day is we tend during our peak phase to get a little fatigued, a little depleted, and be right at that injury risk level. And so we want to make sure that we taper off the intensity a little bit so that we can rebuild up the glycogen stores. So the sugar storage essentially in our muscles and be ready for race day so that we don't bonk quite as much. So that whole carb loading the night before, it doesn't really work. It usually takes a couple of weeks to really build up your glycogen stores. And that's what the taper should really be all about. So slower running so that you're burning a higher amount of fat, maintaining that training volume, but allowing your body to really build back up those glycogen stores so that you're ready to kick butt on race day. And so that's the key. Peaking a week to 2 weeks out, depending on the length and duration of the race. A week to 2 weeks out is when you peak or finish that peak phase, and then you taper, but make sure that you're maintaining the gains that you gained in terms of volume and intensity during that taper phase, and that will help you peak right for race day. Hopefully that made sense and helps you as a runner. If you have any questions about the light speed treadmill or any of the things that we do here at Body Smart to help runners improve their best and stay on the road, definitely hit us up. We would love to answer any questions you might have. If you'd like to try that Lightspeed treadmill, we actually offer free runs on the Lightspeed treadmill if you want to come in and give it a shot and see if it would help you and benefit your running. So give us a call and we can get you set up for a Lightspeed run. It's an unweighting treadmill that takes up to about 50 pounds of your body weight off, depending on how we set up the bungees. And so we can help you unload a lot of that weight and run like lightning. It's really fun. But definitely follow, subscribe this video to this video or to our page so that you can get all of the rest of our videos so you can get our next tips for Wednesday Wisdom.